Right, go ahead. Vice Chair Herman,
Here.
Board Member Feo,
Here.
Board Member Ruppel.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Thanks. And through the minutes. We got the reference that you want to make.
Move to approve the minutes. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. We have any visitors.
We do not have any visitor communication. All right, Matt, I'll turn it over to you folks. These are the consultants, Cameron McCarthy, who are working on the landscape roundabout, or sorry, the landscaping for the Locust Roundabout.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Jorgensen. I'm a landscape designer and arborist with Cameron McCarthy, Landscape Architecture and Planning. And Justin.
My name's Justin Lanfear. I'm a landscape architect, principal owner of Cameron McCarthy. Both Matt and I are honored to be able to speak with you today. We both had the pleasure of working on the Barclay Roundabout several years ago. So we're really looking forward to this and how it's going to sort of help kind of bookend the City of Sisters. Matt?
Yeah, I'll just share my screen here. Okay. There we go. Is that coming through all right?
Oh, there it is. Yep.
You guys are seeing that? Okay. Okay, great. So nice to meet you all. We've been working with the city on this project for a little while now, getting the concept design all down for all that right-of-way area surrounding the new Locust Roundabout. This is what we have for just the overview plan here, so you can see kind of the extents that everything is going to reach to from that roundabout area. And overall with this, rather than like a dense ornamental planting, the goal of our landscape is to blend in and become part of the natural surrounding type of landscape. So we want it to be more naturalistic, low water consumption, environmentally friendly type of planting here. Of course, we're trying to take into account screening of some headlights, and we know there's going to be a future art piece there that's been bumped to phase 2 now. But we're thinking about like a backdrop for what that art piece is going to be and things like that when we're doing our planting in here as well as keeping businesses, visibility good for businesses and not blocking signs and things like that, especially down here in the high camp and the gas station area. So we'll get a little bit of a closer look at that in a minute. We're planning to use plants, that are well adapted and grow well in this hardiness zone. So we're going to use a lot of native shrubs and grasses, perennials, things like tobacco brush and rubber rabbit brush, prairie June grass, lupin, penstemon, things like that. And you can see for the trees that we're using a lot of the common ones around there too. We have the western larch and the ponderosa pine will be the most numerous of the trees that we use. A bit of mountain hemlock as well. And there was good feedback from the city and what we heard about using the aspens. And so it's a Swedish aspen, but aspens are in this hardiness zone. And this one just gives us a more columnar option that's not going to take up quite as much space and a little bit of a different habit there. And that's what we used on the Barclay Roundabout that has been well received. In addition, the Arbor Day planting that you guys have probably seen a bit, these smaller dots down here, those consisted mostly of the ponderosa pines with a bit of western larch as well. Throughout the project, we'll have clusters of planting and some basaltic boulders throughout. So all of these green kind of dotted areas are planting clusters, and these bubbles that are shown are just intended to help us calculate quantities and square footage and things like that as we've gone through the project here and make our estimates. So they'll probably change shape somewhat during planting plan creation to fit the particular conditions of where those plants are going to be. Throughout the project, we're going to have a light brown rock mulch of a couple different types depending on the area, but to blend everything in just for uniformity and give us the weed suppression that we need without just having bare dirt. all around. The red that you see, that's going to be that red cinder mulch that is already in place, that ODOT put in, and that's going to remain there because in the winter, of course, you get the small red cinders are placed on the road for winter conditions, and those get all scraped off and into the adjacent beds. So rather than having those infiltrating into our brown rock mulch, where all those edges will remain the red cinder. In this largest island right here adjacent to the road, we are going to put a few trees in there. But in this case, we're not going to do additional planting there. It'll still be predominantly the red cinder mulch. And just from the key over here, just to let you know what's what, the ponderosa pines are these large guys here. The western larch are these more orange ones. That's a deciduous conifer. These yellowish ones, those are going to be the Swedish aspens, the columnar ones. And then these smaller evergreen ones here are going to be the hemlocks as well. And we believe we're going to put some of the mountain mahogany in the circle up here as well, but we're going to wait and see what the art piece ends up being, and because the planting and whatnot that we provide in there is going to speak to what the art is and coordinate with that as well. So I can just move on to some blow-ups here. So this is kind of some character images of some of the plants we're talking about that'll be going in some of these zones. And the plants that are shown here are not exclusive to this zone, and they're not the only ones that will be used in this zone. This is just a few examples of what some of those are looking like. In this case, this is one of the areas where we did a little bit more screening and backdrop for the art as you're coming around, and more screening of lights and traffic, since we're so close to this building right here that is not a place of business that are trying to draw people in. So we've got some screening going on right there. So that's the northwest quadrant here. And as we wrap around counterclockwise here, we have the southwest quadrant. So here we have the Sisters Pump House and Country Store, as well as the High Camp Tap House. So in this case, we're making sure to keep all of these plantings nice and low, maintain good visibility in here. We're using, we're making sure that everything is fire resistant, or is no kind of fire danger at all that's anywhere near within 30 feet of buildings, but especially in this gas pump area as well. And we only have one tree in this zone because this right here is that existing sign, the gas sign with all the prices. So having one tree in parallel with that sign should not block any views for people coming in from any direction to see that. So moving further around, here's the lot on the south here that is now open. So this is where there's a long straightaway that's going to be for like the large long loads that can't get around the circle. They can take the bollards out and come through here. But most of the time, this is just going to be kind of a tree-lined multi-use path, pedestrian corridor along in here. So I already mentioned the Arbor Day planting we had along this edge. And so we're letting that kind of inform some of our placement of where we're putting our trees and whatnot. And judging from this lot and making it all meld together a little bit, we're keeping the planting on a little bit more sparse side along here. So it matches and blends in pretty well with that adjacent lot. We're also providing planting and screening around the basin, the stormwater basin here. So it's not, so right now it has the rock fill in there, and we'll just break that up a little bit. So you won't be able to see that quite as easily driving through or walking through. Now, as we move around over here to the southeast side, so now we're going to be along that fence line, the Citrus Parks and Rec District property that it also has a project going on right now. And we know that there's a lot of that artwork along this fence that continues all the way down. So everywhere that you see this green striped hatch is an area that we're keeping all of the planting, under 1 or 2 feet and just ground covers in there, so we don't have anything that's going to be blocking that artwork. All of these were the existing trees. There's one large one here on this side of the walk, and these are existing trees that were saved. So those will be the only trees in this immediate area, just so we don't we don't block the artwork, and the adjacent project will have some trees and planting and whatnot on just on the other side of the fence along through this whole most of this zone here. So we don't feel like that'll be it won't feel empty because it'll have a lot of other planting behind it as well. And then as we move up this side, so just after the turn in the fence where this green line ends, that's where the artwork ends on the fence. So right after that, we're going to go ahead and start more tree and shrub planting along that stretch. And the Parks and Rec District asked that they have at least a 20-foot gap in the trees where they can put up banners and whatnot for the city, because they often accommodate banner requests and advertisements along there. So this zone right here between, these are shown at full size, but we have a 30-foot stretch here between the full size trees. So there should be plenty of space in this area and offer great visibility as people are coming around just there. This new path that was already in place to get to that parking lot over there is also included in our work, as well as that new basin just on top. And I was just informed by Paul that unfortunately we lost this big mature ponderosa up at the top here. So in response to that, we've added even a couple more trees around this area to fill this in. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it all the way around. We're happy to take any questions, or Justin, if you have anything you'd like to interject that I may have glossed over.
No, I think you kind of hit on it. Part of this project was to reach out to the adjacent property owner neighbors and offer up the opportunity to sit down and take a look at that. And so we've gone through that process as well. But other than that, I think you've kind of hit on anything. So any questions?
Couple. See, so irrigation, I see one of the items on the legend at the bottom says planted area with drip irrigation. Are you providing drip to the trees also?
Yes, we'll have drip irrigation to trees as well as to each of the planting bubbles.
Okay. Yeah. And I wondered, this might be a question for Jackson, but about street tree code requirements. I mean, I know there's a way to like average the trees, because that's what was done downtown. But the in front of the gas station with only one tree, I understand why you did that, but does that meet code for enough what's considered street trees?
I'd have to look into that more closely. But I believe that's more tied to commercial and residential developments.
Okay,
And we're also
And-
trying to maintain 30-foot spacing on a lot of the plants. We just came out with new prohibited plant species. Unfortunately, a lot of those are native species. Believe we were trying to go heavily native on the plants here, so we're trying to keep some spacing from that gas station, and also allow, like Matt said, allow for visibility to the advertising sign they have there.
Okay. That's a little.
I feel like in many city cases as well. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just starting to say that I feel like in a lot of city cases as well, that the street tree planting kind of refers to that planting strip that's immediately curbside. And in a lot of these zones, we just have the red cinder there and not really much of a planting area. And since this is such a large space, I guess it's
Yeah, I just
technically
wasn't
part of
sure
the
how
right
the-
of way, but not necessarily the curbside planting zone where street trees may be.
Yeah, so it's just a question from my part about how that would apply in that type of circumstance. So I love the rest of it. I'm a little disappointed with only one tree in there, but I get it. And then my other question is, I hate the huge stormwater facility. It's ridiculous that ODOT built it that large. Because they could have easily done an infiltration test and made it a lot smaller. And I have a stormwater background, so I don't get offended by that type of thing. But is there any way we can hide it even more?
Justin, I missed some of that question. It kind of cut out for me.
I
So
heard
didn't
it.
quite hear the whole thing. Okay.
But ultimately, the question being, yes, it's a huge stormwater facility, at least the one to the south. And it's, riprap rock at the bottom, and there's not a lot of landscape along the edges to plant. The question was just, could there be more done with additional planting? The answer is yeah. I mean, the part of this, what we're trying to deal and what you're seeing here is what we believe is a landscape plan that meets the budget that we have to work with, and that's pretty much the biggest factor in our ability to plant more if we wanted to. Is just that there's only so much budget to go around. We're dealing with a budget that was essentially the same as it was for Barclay, but the overall site is
Much bigger.
double to triple the size. So we just it's a little bit more of a challenging balance to not have an area that's just completely devoid of any plants.
Yeah, well, it makes me wonder about, could there be some notes provided, like the city finds more money in the future, or? Yeah, this wanted to do a second Arbor Day.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking, just, keep the mind out there for a second Arbor Day or a future Arbor Day to maybe do some additional tree plantings. And I think that that's a great way to look at it. Sometimes on projects where we're confronted with budgets that aren't really able to be as grandiose planting as we'd like it to be, sometimes it is kind of a recommendations of like, who in your community is a group of people or organization that might be willing to champion doing an additional amount of planting or maintenance of plant landscapes and things along those lines. So I think there's an opportunity there. I mean, and like the world's your oyster in a way. It's like, it could come down to like you could do a fundraiser or something like that to get more trees or plants if desired. It's really
I don't know, I'm guessing you guys are probably at the end of your budget. I just wondered if could you provide some advice on what those, plantings should be, right? If we were to do more in the future, I'd put, some of this tree over here and some of that tree over there or something like that. Because then that would give the city something to go off of.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly chat with Jackson, Paul, and some ideas. Generally speaking, I usually in a situation like this, I would advocate for utilizing more of what's already out in this plan. I wouldn't necessarily start to, what about like the, big leaf maple, I'm not, whatever, a completely different species of something. It'd be more about like, well, can we get more for this area? And another one of those options sometimes is donations, perhaps. Are there, nurseries or, nurseries is the one that jumps to mind that might be willing to donate some materials towards stuff like this. Again, it really depends on that sort of finding the right individuals or groups to kind of come together and champion moving that forward. But we can, we could show. I mean, in fact, we had an older version, a preliminary concept. This is our sort of final concept before I think the Arbor Day that had maybe more trees, and we could possibly even just go back to that, Jackson, and just you could have that as like a, well, earlier on when we were hoping to get more out of our budget, we were showing a few more trees here and there. I think we had like 10 more ponderosas on the project than where we're at right now because of budget. But that's another.
Took out at least 15 trees total. We probably took out 15 to
So
20.
so we could go back to that older. Yeah, we could go back to that older plan, and that could be a starting point.
I'll dive in. Okay, well, that, given the budget constraints, that makes sense. Because I was looking at the plan and big picture comments are like more flowers and more shade, the better. But I do love that, you've got overlapping bloom seasons for the flower native plants. So that it, will actually be more in flower than it was previous to the construction, whereas primarily been in flower seasons. And a couple questions that I had. So I'm not familiar with the Swedish aspen. Do they have the same tendency to root sprout like regular aspen do?
Is the question about the aspen and its suckering potential? Matt, is the Swedish aspen relative to other aspen or similar?
Relative to like a quaking aspen, I think it would be it's a little less vigorous in that aspect. But you know, in a lot of these places, it seems like that it would be welcoming to have a few more be popping up.
And we have the sweetest aspen on the highway downtown. We don't experience a whole lot of suckering from those.
Okay, great. And those are what? Those are 4 or 5 years in or so, like that. So if you're not getting much suckering yet, it probably
A lot
will
more
take
than
some
that.
time.
Yeah,
Maybe close to a decade.
yeah. The pandemic
Okay.
always throws us off.
Yeah,
And then
yeah. So I think
question
it's definitely
about
less vigorous than just a standard quaking aspen.
I'll try to speak louder since Justin, I can tell you.
I'm already hard of hearing, so it's not probably you, it's me.
So the mountain hemlock, I was just a little surprised to see that as a street tree in a hot, dry environment. How do they do in terms of survival as street trees in Central Oregon?
Yeah, we didn't go crazy with the mountain hemlock. We just have 4 or 5 in here. And I know they like a little more moist environment a lot of the time. So, but they are going to be on drip. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to take it because they are, you know, the general area, they should be good. Sisters is a little drier than like as you get, you know, more over towards Subtle Lake and stuff like that. But hopefully, yeah, with the drip, they will hopefully do all right.
They do fall though within the sort of sunny, dry spectrum when you look up native plant lists though, correct?
Uh, they thrive the most, I think, where it's a little more moist, but they do come up as a plant for this
Okay.
area.
Yeah, no, I know they thrive, a lot of things thrive better with a little bit more moisture. It was just wanting to verify that. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then, so the tree, the ponderosa pine that will be planted in the sort of northernmost project area at the corner of Locust and East Cascade. I was trying to picture it in my mind as I drove past to this meeting. Are there any concerns about like clear vision for drivers who are looking to turn on or off that road? How far back will the trunk actually be?
I'm so
I-
sorry. I'm having a hard time.
It's
It's a little bit
I
garbled for
can
some reason on my end.
I can reword that, and I believe Matt, it's and I apologize, Counselor, I forgot your name, but the question is pertaining to the distance of the ponderosa pine from the street corner. That is the intersection. Excuse me, the intersection that is.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm like a mountain hemlock. I could use a little more water. I'm sorry. But no, the intersection to the north, the street that's going over towards the uh, parks, and letter A.
Yes. Concerned about the proximity of this to the street corner.
Yeah, yes,
And the clear vision.
Yeah, and clear visions for, well, all of
Okay.
the people using that intersection.
I'll take a double check on that and do the vision triangle and make sure that it is out of that. This one that is going, or this one that passed that's being taken down is much closer to the road than this was. So I was under the impression that this would be far enough back given the existing conditions. And this distance here is at least 10 feet, I think a little bit more from the sides there. And then the intersection is actually up here. There's the walk and then planting area where that large one passed, and then the road is up here. So I believe it's off enough for vision clearance.
Yeah,
in that
I think
spot.
that triangle would be great just for understanding where this is in connection to the existing streetscape. Okay.
Our construction plans, just to bring up this is a concept plan, but the construction plans, we can certainly make sure to have that shown, whatever the vision clearance triangle is for Sisters, we can make sure that that's showing there. I don't believe we have another intersection of the sort on the south, but yeah, anywhere there is an intersection where it's coming out and there's a vision clearance need, we can make sure to have that in there.
Yeah, we don't have any other driveways or anything either. So that would be the only one that may apply.
What deer protection, what level of deer resistance or deer protection will this project have?
In terms of the plant species and their level of deer resistance?
Yeah,
Yes. So we did not. Some of these plants were ones that we used over on Barclay as well, a decent number of these. And we removed any ones that the city said were being browsed too heavily. Those usually consisted of ones that were more like west of the Cascades plants, because I don't know if you recall on that one, there's one side that's like more of the Cascades and one side that's more of the Central Oregon. And it tended over there that most of the ones that were browsed heavily were the western ones. So we removed anything like that. We did not go through and specifically choose ones that were particularly deer that deer avoided or deer tolerant. We're happy to take feedback on any of that if something looks like it's going to be decimated by that. But our planting designer that's in Central Oregon that is familiar with a lot of these had a lot of these suggestions.
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at it. I do know the Sisters School District building that's in the northwest quadrant there. I've seen deer go into City Hall, just sitting over there browsing the grass and whatnot. So they're definitely frequent.
yeah, looking at the grasses, flowering plants and shrubs, I'm not too concerned about the list. I think more the amount that the deer browse young trees is like phenomenal in Sisters. It's like they eat stuff that they have no business eating, especially the yearlings.
yeah, I mean, honestly, it seems like it depends on the deer. They'll eat any of these things I understand. But you're right, they particularly love Lancaster.
They do love that.
And all these will be nice and lush from watering too. So it probably doesn't matter what it is, they're gonna take a bite.
We've been pretty fortunate with the past 2 Arbor Days on planting very young, very small trees. And they've been perfectly fine. The deer won't touch them,
It's-
remarkably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Do you guys
I
ever
just-
do any kind of tree protection or fencing around new plantings, Jackson?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you guys ever do any tree protection or fencing or anything like that around new plantings as they get
Uh,
established for deer?
Black tubing on tree trunks when they're small, just to avoid the deer from rubbing on them and causing too much damage too early on.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Maybe include that in. I was thinking about browse protectors, but there seems like browse protectors are kind of like become a different sort of problem in terms of suddenly there's always like 2 or 3 browse protectors floating around in the general vicinity, lost without a plant, and just becomes kind of like trash.
And then because the code is so new, I'm not 100% familiar with it about the fire resistant plants and the prohibited species list. Is that just within a certain distance of buildings or?
Within 30 feet of structures, it only applies to new developments, but we thought it would be best to use this as a demonstration and not violate recommendations we made. So I believe there were 2 species, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, that were on the list, but we did make sure that they were outside of that 30 feet.
Yeah, shrub wise, we have a manzanita and a sagebrush on our list, and then we also had to make sure that the mountain hemlock was out of that range, but the ponderosas and the western larches are excluded from the prohibition.
Yeah, thinking about outreach, that might be something to consider. Because that distinction is gonna be lost on people unless you tell them.
Mhm.
Cause they'll be like, what do you mean? Like, we can't have sagebrush anymore.
That's
It's within a certain distance.
yeah, we're really hoping that the landscaping around City Hall, that project will help with education and outreach.
Great.
Hoping it.
Those are just some very good, sure.
And for new development.
Anywhere on the street.
So within 30 feet of a structure. And Sarah, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of that.
I know earlier, we're clear on that, that it's for just development is clear subject to an individual for site plan review. And so then I became curious to go back and look a little closer at the technical phase code. Like, it's not clear in my mind, I have to look at, you got the 32 feet. Which becomes 32 forever, on most of our lawns, I'm poked around there. It's really.
Thank you.
Okay, those are the questions that I had.
If I may take the opportunity, Dane did submit a couple questions that he had. He asked if, let me see, after reviewing the concept plan, I can't wait to see it in a couple years. The one thought I had about plant selection, to be considered going with native plants. Maybe they are all native.
Yeah, we're predominantly native or native analog, they call as well, which means that it would be a similar growing zone, may not be or you know, with climate change and whatever, that a native analog would be one that that would be okay with the current conditions and getting into those more extreme conditions over time as well. But for the most part, we stayed as native as possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Came on the landscape and this. Going forward, once it's in, where that,
Once it's in, we will maintain it.
and where it says the grass, the ground cover. Grass clusters, in between that is the rock. It's not like grass, it's not like lawn you're mowing, right? It's grass clusters. You understand?
It's not turf.
That's not true.
No.
Yeah, sorry, you're talking about the green area over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, I know some of the coloration on there and some of these pictures showing some trees show turf like in the background, but there's no turf or yeah, watered turf in this project. This will be the same brown rock mulch as everywhere else. This is just a different color on the concept plan to denote that that's where we're keeping all the plantings very low due to the art on the fence. But yeah, no turf on this project.
And the maintenance of the volunteer plants like to grow where things aren't watered. That's just a part of the standard protocol that you guys do anyway,
Mhm.
everywhere else.
Yeah, weeding, maintaining, pruning if needed, annual, biannual trimmings, making it look nice.
We picked some of my favorite native plants, so I'm really excited about it.
Oh, good. What are your favorites?
Oh, well, needle and thread grass. Lupin, Penston, Oregon sunshine, like all the flowers, and then manzanita, I would say. Oh, and Pearl Lake Mountain mahogany. Yeah, that's a very special tree. Mhm.
Great. Well, I'm glad we have some that you like.
Yeah,
Interact.
yeah, you're a rush fan.
Well, it's very easy. It'll come up whether you plant it or not. Like,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch if there was a question there.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything like to add? All looks great, guys. Thank you very much for doing such a good job on that. It's really beautiful, very thoughtful.
Thank you.
forward to it.
Jackson, anything else you want to do on that one here?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
In that case, we can.
Oh,
Justin here.
no, Matt and Justin, thanks for tuning in and walking us through the plans. You folks are welcome to continue on with your day.
Thank you.
All right, you bet. Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
Take care, everybody. You too.
Do we have any business?
No board business, but looking for a recommendation from the board to move forward, or if we need to address any red flags.
I like
The red flags, I would like the idea of asking them to provide information so that maybe in the future we could add more around the hole in the ground.
Mhm.
and along the fence. The buffer fence.
Oh,
there's not, if you look, there's not a lot of plantings there.
They did that on purpose, so you can see the art.
So they didn't put a lot of trees there. They didn't put trees in that section for the art.
That's a good point, because you could keep
Because
the
the
shrubs
flowers,
out, but you could have the shade.
so I think there's opportunity for some taller, tall trees that will grow up and won't block the view, and then more ground cover, low plantings. In the future, maybe.
Yeah, we have
Oh, well,
we have the plant list. If we notice as things start to grow and fill in, if we need to strategically place some plants, we can certainly do so.
Thank you very much. Sign off on this, to move forward for now, or move forward with those comments.
What helps you the most?
You need a motion?
A motion would be helpful, and just so I can clarify, we're looking for some additional plantings along the section where there's art on the fence,
Tree.
trees.
trees and ground cover, low planting zones. And that would be something for the future, so not as part of this plan, but sort of that recommendation for thinking about what as future opportunity presents to have more planting around the drainage area, and then low plants and trees.
So
along
So
the-
the
tying in with,
recommendation from the landscape architect about recognizing the budget. That if they could make recommendations for what they would have liked to have added. Which particularly around the swale and the fence area. I think that would just be,
Yeah.
like, could they just. Nothing fancy, but just so you'd have that available.
identify some areas and species that might work well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should that be part of the motion set up here? Or is that solely?
I think if you include that in the motion succinctly, I think that would work. So
No. We. What, recommend the plan be implemented, and additionally request that the landscape architects, provide lists of plants that could be added in the future around the stormwater facility and the art fence. Oh, short, but right.
Started in the conversation.
it gets the message
Three
across.
suggestions for stormwater. That block the stormwater and don't block it.
Yeah. Block the stormwater, don't block the art, yes.
I said. All in favor? All opposed?
Thank you.
Anything else, Jackson?
No more board business.
I wrote this, I didn't see anything in the code, in the conventional space code about, after 30 feet. But, we have a chance at meetings to just provide comments about the event too, and I'm gonna just bring it up. That there are some plants on there that are on the, prohibited plant list, which does only pertain within 30 feet of a new building. Just to kind of get a feel for if that raises any flags, but it's one of those, I don't think it's against code, but maybe it's, something for a little more discussion. I guess I'm kind of this is Sarah, one person's opinion, it's like, why would we want to plant stuff that's on our prohibited plant list, but that's me.
Well, I mean, to me, I think there's a reason why it's only, it's prohibited within a certain zone. So we're having areas where it's not prohibited. So, and I think that's okay, those are native plants, I don't wanna see us totally discouraging a big list of really important habitat plants. Where we don't have to. And these areas are a long way from anything I would worry about. Running, I mean, I personally hate having native plants on that list. At all, but it's understandable for things like juniper. But. I don't know, my question to you is thinking about how to bring it up. Because at least from my standpoint, I think it's perfectly fine that they're in here, I actually kind of appreciate them, they're plants that I enjoy. And so,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem at all with them being on here, and they're a long ways from anything to worry about.
yeah, well, I'm going to bring it up more from the thought of, this is almost a predecessor to what happens when we start building parks and things like that. It's a, what is the general feeling about continuing with those? It is a question, just, it's gonna be answered somewhere.
So I think the discussion will happen with the firewise, waterwise landscape that's gonna be developed around here is that. So I find, so one of the things I do for my work is I run the water conservation program for City Bend. And one of the problems I have with trying to coordinate with our fire folks. Is that if you look at the materials they tend to give people about fireways, they always have. When they talk about native plants, that they typically have these graphics that they'll show people and it looks like lawn. All the way around buildings. And so they give people the impression that that's what they should be doing, but then that uses a ton of water. And so I wanna make sure that what we do is a balance of those two things and thinks about. Fire, water, and frankly habitat.
Yeah,
And finds a good balance between those things, and because I really worry about people getting. So worried about fire, they do other stuff that's harmful to other areas, so good topics.
no, that's a really good comment, I do believe, I think we're taking the grass out.
Yeah.
Yep. To show what it can look like without grass, you know, and then it's so beautiful.
And it can be fireways and it can be close water.
Yes, all of it.
Great stuff.
And you're right, we need to be looking at how we maintain our habitats and where that happens. Especially. In very densely. Densely built housing. We can't just. Rip everything out, we're not allowed, we're not gonna. What's already here is here, so that's a whole other topic. Besides what will be built, like in, because that's. Really where we're going with this, because the rest of it is. There's some small infill, but there's just not a lot. Nothing built here. Yeah, and please, if you hear like things that. Not a meeting, do you think that's ridiculous, or you forgot to mention this? Please send emails or show up at meetings, whatever, because. When I sit here and listen to y'all, like ask questions, that's why there's the boards of people who are thinking differently and come from different backgrounds. I don't, part of why I didn't mind taking the job is because there's so much input. I don't know everything. I actually don't know a lot. It's just taking information in and saying, okay, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense, and then, so, I get appreciate feedback. Yeah, good. Good night, seriously. Jake's always being here, so, good things that I'm not thinking about, so.
Probably matter where that 30-foot number came from, right? That was the research needed to say that this is, the defensible states. And where that number came from, that is, habitat is important. How do you get? It should have been 35 and make it 35, right? 45.
So the 30 feet, apparently it is outside of what I'll talk about, is like an industry standard in the fire world. There's an organization and I'm horrible, and we just talked about acronyms, it's called IDHS. But it's an organization funded by the insurance industry to do, really technical research. And they have put out standards that it's kind of like taking fire life to the next level, especially if you're looking at I suspect this has not been said anywhere, but long term, it may be something that insurance companies will be looking for people to do in order to get either insurance at all or better rates on insurance. And so, yeah, that's where the number came from. It's from their documentation, and a lot of their code is pretty much from their standards. So it wasn't something that was made up by city council at all. And we do have a couple of gentlemen from the fire department who were here, all the hearings on it. More deeply speaks than I for certain.
The board member comments.
I'll just add the way that they played out the trees that have the rock mulch, they're all sort of separated, and that's a really big piece for fire suppression and not having everything catch on fire all at once. And so I think there's a nuance or piece to consider, like these are native plants in a very man-made environment. Because if you're out and about, honestly, and you have ryebush or sagebrush in the landscape, you also have a ton of cheatgrass. And so this is a much more controlled setting, and it's going to be irrigated, maintained, et cetera. So it's not really the same as like, when you think about like Highway 97, like out towards Madras, like catches on fire all the time. But you drive through there and then it's like dried cheatgrass and just completely like non-managed environment. So that's another piece that is like we already have like separation from the road and big multi-use path. There's just like a lot of breaks in the people that would exist. A small, there's not a ton of especially currently right now, there's not as much in the plan.
I have some updates on projects. Okay. So East Portal. First CET bus started its route there at in the morning on what is that? June 30th. That was Monday. Yep. Fill station, dump station opened the following day on July 1st. It's been getting a lot of use. It's really helped in relieving the campground, dump station. Camp hosts have been really good at directing folks there if the line starts to form. And people are really excited when they hear that there's another one. So Paul's working on getting some signage and getting advertising out there that there is a dump station there and highway signage directing folks to the new facility. Have you folks had a chance to check it out? Just driving past.
I thought beautiful park there, doing the thing that it's supposed to do.
Awesome. Well, let's see, Barclay Drive, we did have to reconfigure the intersection with Locust just a little bit, the Duracurb and the bollards. Fire department notified us that it was a little bit hard for their engines to make that turn. So we immediately that afternoon got out there, unbolted them, rebolted them about 5 feet in. And then they test drove their engine through there and were pleased with it.
It works much better.
Mhm.
Yeah, you guys were great getting right on top of that.
That was all Paul. Let's see what else. Lighting has been installed. Street lighting. So I think we're just doing some minor touch-ups. They had to fix some irrigation on the storage unit side, and it's looking great. West Side Pump Station, that'll be going to council tomorrow for approval. Yes. Elm Street multi-use path, a bit of a hiccup in the design. We had to switch bridge designers. We just lost contact with the other bridge designer, unfortunately. So we're going to the manufacturer that designed the bridge that already crosses White's Creek a little further south. Pioneer Bridge, I think, is the manufacturer. So we're going to be working with them on getting a bridge in there. Hopefully, kind of in the same style, so it fits the aesthetic.
The one on Brooks Scanlon.
Yes.
Logger.
Thank you. I forgot the name of that road. Northwest Park looks like we're still looking into some additional public outreach. More to come on that. Surely that'll be some sort of survey distributed to the public. North Locust safety improvements. We should be hearing about the results any day now. I reached out to the grant coordinator after seeing a listing on the website about 2025 awardees, and we weren't on the list, and they said, no, that was from earlier in the year. So we should be hearing any day now on whether or not we got that grant. And that will involve some reworking of that crosswalk on the corner where we took out the big pine. So helping hopefully to make that much more visible. And as we touched on earlier, new project coordinator starting next Monday. And that's all I have. Unless there's any questions about any projects out there, any comments, any observations.
Right, we adjourn.